Today what I'm going to be doing is making a really simple cauldron for Halloween to put sweets in to hand out. And all I'm going to be using is some paper, this balloon, and some glue, and some paints and bits and pieces. And I'm sure you all remember doing this as kids. I want the cauldron to have a flat bottom to it, and if I just cover this now as the way it is, it's going to have a curved bottom. So what I've done is, out of just a piece of corrugated cardboard like this, I've actually cut a circle out, and I'm going to pop that on first before I do anything else. And it's easy to pop on. You know where the centre is of any balloon because it has the little bit there. Not sure if that's called a nipple or what it's called. Then I'm going to sellotape that onto the balloon, and that should be enough for me. So I've put this inside this little plastic paint kettle actually, and I want it to be on there, and I want it to be quite central. So again, all I'm going to do is I'm going to pop a bit of sellotape on there so it doesn't keep moving. And then I'll do the paper mache up to really about there, because I will trim it all off first before I paint it anyway. And this just makes life a little bit easier. Don't keep bouncing around when you're trying to put your paper mache on it. And now I'm just going to put my paper, I'll probably put a couple bit more tape on there, and then I'm now going to put my paper mache over the top of it. And what I'm going to be using is the brown paper packaging that comes out of the packages when you get them from Amazon, and my white glue mix as well, which is white glue and a little bit of water just stirred up together. I will link everything that I've used today in the description below, don't worry, so that it's easy for you to get hold of. And also I can now link for Australia, America, the UK and Canada, which is great news. So the links are down below. All you need to do is click the show more button and it'll open up the description and it will be there for you. And I like to give it a really good covering of glue. Put a bit of paper on it and then glue that down, going round like that to make sure that it's nice and secure and at a nice thickness. And I let the first layer dry before I do the second layer, and then I will do the last two layers without letting the in-between dry, if that makes sense. And there is a really good reason why I do that, and it's because it allows you to get a nicer finish with this, and it saves any extra work that you have to do once everything is dry. I'll show you what I mean as I get to this next layer. First coat is on there now, and I'm just going to let that dry off and ensure that it is completely dry before I put the next coat on. The first layer of this is nice and dry now, and the reason I like to do this one in just one layer is because where you've got little wrinkles and things like this, once it's dry, you can actually work them down a little bit if you want to, but also you know where they are to be able to cover them up if you wish to cover them up with your next couple of layers. Now I'm going to also, once this is finished with the paper mache, do something else with it other than paper mache to give it a little bit of a texture, give it a slightly better finish, and you'll be able to see that as well once the next couple of layers are finished drying. And the reason I give it a couple of more layers is at the moment it's just too thin and it's not going to hold up. So another 2 or 3 layers and then you're laughing. Well, while that is drying now, the rest of the cauldron, I'm going to make some pieces out of this modelling clay, the air dry modelling clay, to put on it once it is nicely set and sorted out, because I want some pieces to go round it, and I'll show you what I'm going to do those. And these are really easy to do. I'm just pushing this modelling clay into these moulds, and these are just moulds that I've got, and I like to use my moulds more than once and for more than one thing. These are my resin moulds. And once these are dry, if they're not as flat as you want them, then what you can do is you can sand them down. And they do sand down really easily once they're dry. They actually don't take long to dry. And to be honest, this weather that we've got here today in the UK, I would imagine these won't be long at all drying. I'm just going to rub a little bit of water over that. Smooth that all out nicely, and I'll let that cure up a little bit before I take it out of its mould, and then it'll be a little bit firmer and it's not going to get damaged. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do all these ones as well so that I can put these on when we're done, and I'll show you what they look like once they're dry. Well, this is all nice and dry now, but unfortunately I was going to show you when I was popping the balloon, but it popped overnight, and so most of it has come out. But it does come off quite easily, and as you can see, it's gone quite nice and hard. But because it popped a little bit prior to me wanting it to pop, and it was still a little bit damp, hadn't completely dried, it did shrink down a little bit in size, but I actually really quite like that sort of shape. All the little bits I made out of the air dry clay have all dried up nicely and can be put on. Now I might not put all these on, but I will definitely be putting some of them on. But before I do that, I need firstly to trim off this rim to ensure that it's the right size and looks nice and neat. And also what I need to do is smooth all these sides down, because I don't want the actual bits to show on the paper. So I'm going to show you how I do that. Now regarding this, again, I will literally do this by eye, and I will go round, draw a line, and then I will go round with a sharp pair of scissors or a blade, probably scissors on this, and cut this off. Once I've got this line on, I will double check it, see that it is in the right place. And I also need to make a handle to go on the cauldron. And then have a look. A bit more off that bit. I'm sure there's more of a technical way that you can do this, but... So what I'm going to do is to make these edges stronger and to give them a bit of support is just go round and do exactly the same as I did on this, but around all the edges. And I'm only going to give one layer because that will be ready then for the next bit that I'm going to do to kind of give it a more of a texture and to get rid of all these bits where it looks like broken leather. Well, this is all dry now, and I'm really pleased with how that lip is looking. I'm going to smooth this out, and now this is the lovely messy bit as well. I've got some ready mixed filler, and I'm going to go all the way around this with this filler. Now, this is going to give it a bit of a texture, and I want that, but it's also going to make it more of an even texture as opposed to the paper mache that I've put on the outsides. The other thing that this is hopefully going to work for is it's going to work for being able to stick on the extra bits that I've got that I want to include on here. Now, I don't want this to be looking stippled in any way, and I'll show you how I'm going to overcome the stippling look in a second. Oh, this is lovely. It feels so good. And this is really going to dry fairly quickly. It's not going to take too long to dry, so I will work quite fast with this. And you can get this ready mixed up stuff everywhere, but I will link it in the description for everywhere that I have links for, so Canada, America, Australia and the UK. I've got a nice coat of it going all the way around. If I wanted to, I could leave it like that, but actually I don't want to leave it like that at all. And then I'm just going to take a little bit of water in a spray gun and just give it a quick spray all over. Then I'm going to use my hand and rub it up and down like this, all the way round. That will help to smooth this off. I don't want it perfectly smooth. I don't want it to look like it's been plastered, because I do want a bit of texture on it ready for when I paint it. And you could miss this stage out completely. You don't need to do this stage. You could just do it with the paper mache and paint on top of that if you don't want to do this stage. But this will dry nice and hard. Around that lip again, make sure that's all nice and done. So then I'm going to use my pieces that I made, for instance my dragons, and I'm going to put one there towards the top, and then I'm going to put one the other side as close to opposite as I possibly can. And these should stick on there nicely. And then the claws. And I'm having one set of claws going down, like this. And I did make 2 sets of claws, so I'm going to do the opposite, the other side, and these ones are going to go up. And then I've got the 4 skulls. I'm going to put the crosses underneath the bats. And I think that'll be enough for me on there. And the other pieces I'll just use somewhere else or another time for something else. I'll leave this to cure up or to dry off. I'm going to go and put it out in the garden now. I've got the handle there and it's all covered. And I've put it in between these 2 pots so it keeps to the right sort of shape. And then as soon as that's completely dry, I'm going to glue that on. This is all dried nicely. As you can see, it's nice and firm. And everything is stayed in place. Now, what I'm going to do first of all is I'm going to paint this black, and then I'm going to finish it off with a bit of painting technique. The handle has also come out really, really well, and I have decided to stretch it across there like that. Now, I am going to fix the handle onto it. I'm not going to have it so it moves, because that will be a lot simpler to do. I'm going to glue it on and then clamp it on until that glue is dry. And I'm going to use a super glue for this because I think that will work probably the best actually, and a couple of these little clamps. And this is a gel super glue. Then I'm going to put it there like that and clamp that on. And that shouldn't take too long to dry. That'll only be about 5 or 10 minutes and that'll be all nicely dried up, and then I can paint that. This is at about 20 minutes now. It probably didn't need as long as that. And yeah, that's nicely on there and that's not going to go anywhere. Very well glued on, and super glue is great for that sort of thing. And now what I'm going to do is give it a coat of black all the way over and inside before I go any further. So I've just got my normal Arteza paint here, Mars Black, and I'm just going to give it a really good coat so that there is no white or cardboard colour showing through anywhere. And if I have to use a smaller brush to get into some of the areas, then that's what I shall do, like inside here. And then once it's given a good coat of this, both inside and out, then I will do some little bit of detail work on here as well, just to make it stand out. Well, now this is all nice and dry, what I can do is I can go over it and put on the final paint effect and then give it a varnish of satin varnish to give it that bit of a sheen to it. And what I'm going to use for this is I'm going to use some copper paint that I'm going to dry brush over certain areas to pick out some highlights. And I love dry brushing. I think it really does give things a really nice look and finish, and it kind of gives them a little bit more depth than just being the one colour black. So all I'm going to do is load a bit onto my brush, knock some of that off, and then go over it in places like this. And as you can see, it's already starting to bring that to life. And you can use any colour you want to dry brush with. You don't have to just use copper. You could use a bit of silver if you wished. I might even go over this with a little bit of silver in a minute, just to give it a few extra little highlights. And you can see it is going a nice long way. And the secret is to load your brush up first as well, not just give it a little tiny dab in. And that will really help with that dry brushing. Yeah, and I think that's come out really well there, the dry brushing. It gives it that extra bit. And now I am going to go over it with a little bit of silver, just a tiny bit. And I'm not washing my brush out because that will help it blend in a little bit more. See? And it just kind of gives it some highlights as well. And that's it. And now all I'm going to do is I'm going to give it a coat of satin varnish to give it a bit of a gloss sheen. I think that's come out really, really well. And then I'll show you what it looks like after I've given it a bit of varnish. Well, this is all finished now and nice and dry, and I think it's ideal for any kid to go out trick-or-treating with. It's not heavy at all, and it could get nicely full of sweets. Or if you didn't want to use it for one of your kids to go out trick-or-treating for, you could then put it out as a decoration or fill it with candy or sweets to give out to people when they come to your door. Let me know in the comments what you think of this. I think it's come out really, really well. I think putting the filler or the spackle or whatever you want to call it onto the outside really does give it that extra dimension as well as the dry brush shim. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and please boot that like button. It really does help my videos to get out there, and I am trying to grow this channel as much as I possibly can now. And if you'd like to buy me a coffee just to say thank you for any of the videos that I make, it really is appreciated and it does help me to buy the equipment that I need and the pieces that I need to continue making these projects. Take care, enjoy your crafting, bye.